welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 157 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 13 of A Storm of Swords, that's Arya 2.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. And hopefully we're going to provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge in a little pedantry, and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll provide some additional information which will become very, very handy if you're not reading along. How are you, Mackelly Ray?
I am doing fine this morning. How are you?
I'm well. I'm getting excited, got my big trip starting tomorrow.
That you do. You sure do. That when I have a large trip, I tend to get nervous about all the moving parts. Have you? You're not necessarily as the nervous type like I am, though.
I don't know. I do get nervous. I mean, I've done a lot of traveling in my life, so that familiarity is there.
Right.
And I've done a lot of traveling on my own for business, and there I'm completely fine because it's me.
Right.
And I just don't worry about it.
Just roll with the punches. Yes.
Exactly, but this is taking the family, and so it's a different level of stress. I want everything to go fine, and It doesn't seem like travel is going very smoothly in the world at the moment. So
yes, right.
We are nervous about things, but we're going to have a great time, so I'm focusing on that.
That's right. Do you have?
And we're going to see my family for the first time in 4 years.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Do you have how many layovers? It's surely not direct.
No, we fly to Boston and then directly from Boston to Athens.
Well, so just one connection that has to go as planned.
Yep. And that'll be fun. I mean, we won't miss any connections. It's going to be good.
That's right.
Also, I'm in a horrible dispute with a bank. I've told you about this.
Yes,
I'm withholding the name of the bank for now, but I have told them about my podcast and how many listeners I have.
The person looked around their cubicle and said, "I have that many people in this office right here. I could shout to reach the same amount of people." No, not.
Boy, they've made me angry.
I'm sure they have. I can't even believe the situation that you're in.
They, I've investigated small claims court. I'm ready to have my day on the stand in front of the judge.
Would that even classify as small claims, though?
No, yeah. Well, the claim is for $2,000, but the small claims goes up to $10,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it fits. We shall see.
Oh,
the latest they've told me is that they are discussing it at the highest levels of the bank, my case, and when they finish discussing it, they will announce their decision to me, or they will not.
Well,
I'm like,
is there a third option?
It's like, how does that help me? So, can you give me kind of timeline on this? You know?
We'll either let you know what we decided, or we won't.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking if they decide in my favor, they'll definitely let me know,
right?
But maybe not.
How are you supposed to know one way or the other?
Right.
Oh, I don't even know if funny is the right word. I feel like it's not.
Yeah. I have a couple of jokes for you.
Okay, yes, I see. It says jokes on here.
Yeah, I got jokes. So I heard a couple of jokes this last couple of weeks that have cracked me up, and I really enjoyed them. So one is, I spent the whole morning working on a time machine. So that's 4 hours I'm definitely getting back. And then the other one I like even more, which is my attempts to combine nitrous oxide with bouillon have made me a laughingstock.
Good stuff.
I'm so thrilled with those jokes.
Always good to begin a show with some dad jokes. As we are both dads. Oh, well.
I love that bouillon.
Laughing stock. Oh, goodness. I have a shirt that
what
says...
have you got going on?
I have a shirt that says, dad jokes, more like rad jokes. Which is itself a dad joke, so, you know.
Yes, I would say so. Yes.
Well, the big news around here this week is that Stacy and I had our 23rd wedding anniversary on
congratulations.
one of the days earlier this week. I can't recall which one off the top of my head. I think it was Wednesday or so. Thank you. Yes, we've now caught you guys, right? You guys are at 23 as well?
We're at 23, yeah.
So, yeah, we're going to go out to dinner tonight, and that's about it. It's about all we got going on. Yes, Little Caesars. Yes, we'll each get a pizza. We'll do the pizza thing. So.
You got a coupon, I assume.
Yeah, of course. Buy one, get one. Oh, wait, I think that's the regular deal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, congrats.
Well, thank you.
And will you send, from everyone who listens, will you send sympathies to Stacey? Because that's a long time.
I will do. Yes.
And she's really taken one for the team there.
Yeah, I will. I will be certain to let her know that you all send your sympathies.
Anyway, let's get down to business. How do we leave Arya Stark? So last we saw of Arya, she and the boys were riding away from Harrenhal, looking for the trident to follow west to Riverrun. Arya was convinced that the bloody mummers were hunting them, and so she kept them moving as long as she could, until she literally fell asleep in the saddle. That night she dreamt she was part of a wolf pack attacking members of the bloody mummers. Why don't we give them the summary of this one?
All right. Arya and Hot Pie loot the garden of a burned-out cottage for a few carrots and some cabbage. Gendry sleeps behind a wall of the cottage. The sound of singing stops them in their tracks. Her mind first goes to the bloody mummers, but she discounts the idea as singing seems rather out of character for that group. Regardless, she tells Hot Pie to go wake Gendry and hide behind the wall of the cottage with the horses.
Arya hides behind a tree near the river road, praying that everyone stays hidden and quiet. She watches and waits. When one of the trio's horses whickers, the singing stops. She hears 2, maybe 3 voices. They're discussing whether it could be wolves, lions, or an honest person hiding.
When the archer of the group prepares to send arrows over the wall, Arya jumps from her hiding place and threatens them. She finds 3 men, a singer, a soldier, and an archer. She tells them...
Did they walk into a bar?
I know, right? That does sound like the beginning of a joke. She tells them to keep moving, and she won't harm them. The men find that rather amusing, and offer to take her to an inn for food and shelter. It's dangerous for a little girl alone in this war zone.
Gendry and Hot Pie ride from behind the wall, announcing that she's not alone. The men take an immediate interest in their horses. They ask the kids' names. Hot Pie gives his up right away. Arya calls herself Squab, and Gendry calls himself the Bull. The men reveal theirs. The singer is named Tom of Seven Streams, or Thomas Evans. The soldier is named Lem, short for Lemon Cloak, named for the yellow cloak that he wears. And the archer is a familiar name to us. His name is Angai.
That does sound familiar. Tom correctly guesses that they came from Harrenhal, mostly due to Arya still wearing her flayed man sigil vest or whatever she's wearing that has it on there. Hot Pie blurts out all of their business. They were at Harrenhal when Roose Bolton took over, and now they're looking for Riverrun. Arya wants to shove rocks in his mouth to shut him up. The men announce that they're King's men. When pressed on which king, Robert is their answer. Arya thinks they're more likely outlaws.
To prove they mean the kids no harm, Angai fires an arrow within an inch of Arya's ear. I'm not sure that proves
I know, right?
No harm.
Odd way to do it, I guess.
Realizing that they have no choice, the kids agree to go with them to an inn 2 miles down the road. It's run by a husband and wife and an orphan boy that they've taken in. Does that sound familiar?
That sounds familiar as well.
It's the kind of thing you would put in the notes to trip me up, but it does sound familiar to me too. So, because it's only last chapter. Hot Pie and Tom break into a duet of the Bear and the Maiden Fair to while away the miles.
Arya thinks the inn looks homey. It has a sign with some old king on his knees. She notices an empty stable, oddly full of horse crap. But what catches her eye the most is a skiff tied up at the dock along the Red Fork. She has visions of them sailing it upriver to Riverrun. Gendry's a bit more skeptical. He volunteers to stay with the horses in the stable while the other 2 eat.
Inside the inn, they meet Sharna. She berates all of them for one thing or another and shouts for her husband. The woman offers the party rabbit, ale, and bread. The men begin discussing the kids' horses. The new horses are better than the 3 that the husband sold, but the 3 men who found Arya and co. were supposed to retrieve those horses. The innkeeper said he sent the trio who bought them their way. Angai and Lem claim the trio never showed up.
Wonder why that is. When the bread arrives, Hot Pie isn't impressed and launches into a lengthy dissertation on proper bread-making techniques. Tom plops down at the table with Arya and Hot Pie. He presents them an IOU for their horses. Now Arya's not impressed. She counters with a trade offer of the horses for the skiff, despite it being clear she has absolutely no leverage. Everyone laughs at her boldness.
Gendry bursts in to announce soldiers approaching. Arya reaches for her sword, but Lem grabs her hand and prevents her from holding it. She smashes the tankard of ale in her other hand into his nose, breaking it, the tankard and the nose.
Yes.
Right then, a ragged band of men come through the door. Upon inspection, Arya realizes she knows one of them. It's Harwin. She grew up with him at Winterfell. She shouts to him, breaking into sobs. At first he doesn't recognize her until she reminds him of how he'd led her pony around the yard. Arya Underfoot? Lem asks who she is. Harwin drops to his knee and announces that she's the Hand's daughter, Arya Stark of Winterfell.
Look, you probably can't see. Can you see that I have goosebumps? Can you see my arm?
Goosebumps.
I literally, every time I hear the end of this chapter, I get goosebumps. It's a reaction I have no control over.
You're a sucker for Arya being announced.
I love reunions. I love when characters finally meet up with someone. And in this case, I just imagine finally seeing someone that you grew up with, that you've known your whole life after all she's gone through since the sacking of the Tower of the Hand.
But also, after all she's been through and all she's kept this a secret, to blurt it out now, it's great to see a familiar face, but he is not necessarily the man she knew, you know?
That's a good point. He's probably been through a lot too, as we'll discuss.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Arya's picked up another name, because she didn't have enough already.
Right.
She calls herself Squab. It was actually suggested when Hot Pie gives his name, the 3 men laugh and think that the other 2 must have food names too. I think they call Gendry Mutton Chop or something like that.
Yes.
And they call Arya Squab, so she adopts it. She says she's Squab. But Gendry changes his. He says, no, I'm the Bull. And Gendry calls himself Bull for his now lost bull helmet.
Right, yes.
Of course, Hot Pie has to be Hot Pie. I mean, what else could he be?
Right, and what good is it to change that name, you know? Start calling himself Cold Pie.
Yeah. Of course, if he keeps on tramping through the woods with no food to eat, he'll end up sort of being thin as a rail, and then Hot Pie might seem like a weird name at that point.
Maybe he'll just really want a hot pie.
Glass of water or something.
Yeah, so like you said, Arya's got a growing list. Every now and then, when she gets a new one, we collect them all in a list here. So she has Arya Horseface and Arya Underfoot, which she acquired in Winterfell. She's got Ari, which is what Yoren named her when he took her as part of the Night's Watch recruits. She's got Lumpy Head, Lumpy Face, which is what Lamy Greenhands called her. She called herself Weasel when she first got to Harrenhal, and then changed it to Nan at Harrenhal when Roose Bolton asked her name. And now she's taken on the moniker Squab, which I looked up. It's a young pigeon.
Oh, thanks for that. I thought it was some kind of fish.
Yeah, it's either the meat of young pigeon or just a young pigeon. In this case, I'm guessing it's the meat.
So one theme that's continued from the previous chapter, and as I said, lucky for me, it was the previous chapter because all of this did seem very
well.
familiar.
There's a Tyrion chapter in between, but
so I don't remember. the chapter in between is gone. But okay, so my memory lasts longer than I realized.
Yes, that's right.
You know what it is? You know what it is actually. We've been cramming chapters.
Right, we have. Yes.
So the distance between this chapter and the Jaime chapter is the regular distance, but we put one in between.
Right.
But the lack of distinction made between the wolf and the lion, which is very interesting, because by the end of this chapter we know who this party is, or at least we have an idea from whence they came, because of the presence of both Harwin and Angai. Right. Those two people were in King's Landing. In fact, one of them we weren't sure where he went, but one of them we were absolutely sure where he went. He was sent with Beric Dondarrion to de-summit the mountain. Right. So this is that group, or the remnants of that group. Yes,
he was one of the many Stark household guard that Ned kept giving away.
Right, exactly, yeah. For Harwin, probably a good move because everybody else is dead. But then again, for Ned, a bad move because he's dead.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. It actually did turn out to be a good move for Harwin. I hadn't thought about it that way. Harwin's father stayed behind and he ended up dead, so...
Right. The flip side of that, of course, is that they might have held on had they stayed.
True, if they had another 40 or whatever.
Right. But yes, so the reason that I bring that up, I know that's right at the end of the chapter, but the reason I bring it up now when we're talking about it is because they keep on sort of blurring the lines between the wolves and the lions.
Yes.
But you'd think that this party, having been sent by Ned Stark to bring the mountain to justice, that is, being sent by a wolf to arrest a lion, you'd think that they might have a bias in favor of the wolves.
Absolutely. It is, and it's not just like once or so. Multiple instances throughout both this chapter and the Jaime chapter, they say wolf first. Now, it could be the fact that there are literal wolves in the... Because, Angai, or one of them, says there could be a wolf, maybe a lion behind that wall. And I think it's Lem, I don't know. She can't tell them apart at this point because she hasn't seen them. So we don't know really whose voice is which. Says 2 feet or 4 feet or 2. And the response is, makes no matter, does it? So they are saying it could be an actual wolf, or it could be a figurative wolf, a Northman. Oh, yeah, but it makes no matter.
Right. But you're definitely right. They're definitely sort of like playing loose and free with what they mean by a wolf. But when they lump it in with the lions, I'm pretty sure they're confident it's not a 4-legged lion hiding behind that wall. So
that one does seem rather certain.
Even Angai, who's cool as a cucumber, might be like, well, it actually does make a difference. I was wrong.
Yes. If there's a lion back there, I'm out of here.
I don't care how good I am. That thing's going to get me.
Yeah, but, it's interesting that they bring up wolves first in almost every instance.
I have a theory, which is basically that these guys have obviously gone off script. Yeah, they were sent to bring. I've forgotten his name.
Gregor Clegane.
Gregor Clegane. Yes, Gregor Clegane to justice. They failed in that mission, but they were in the Riverlands while the fighting was going on, and they took it upon themselves to harass the Lannister forces. Right. That's what they were. We kept hearing about them harassing the Lannister forces. Things have switched in the Riverlands now. And basically the whole Riverlands are now controlled by the Stark forces. But the area of the Riverlands where this group has been mostly spotted is the area around Harrenhal. And that's now controlled by Roose Bolton. And we've got a pretty good sense that Roose Bolton has not really brought law and order in the style that Robb Stark would bring it to that region.
Good point.
He has in fact exacerbated and continued what the Lannisters were doing.
Yes.
Which is now basically reprisals against the people who helped the Lannisters, who had no choice in helping the Lannisters.
Yes.
And are now being terrorized. So this group, I think, is like, well, this is no better than the previous group.
Right. This regime is as bad as the last one.
Right. The person who sent them is dead. The person on whose behalf they were sent is dead. So they've become sort of like leaderless. But they see this, unfairness going on, and they have sort of set themselves up as a band that will fight these injustices.
Yes.
To an extent.
Right.
Because they are robbing people. They were clearly going to rob Jaime and Brienne.
Yes. And they're basically robbing the kids as well.
Yes, although They are giving them an IOU, and they may even give them the boat. I mean, they don't seem particularly interested in the boat themselves, but I honestly think the kids will find themselves 100 miles downstream and they wanted to go upstream if they get on board.
They're going to be right
boat.
down by the Harrenhal again. Sail down to Derry. Yeah,
the only thing stopping them reaching the sea is those 2 sunken boats.
That's right. Yeah, if the innkeep was legit about that. Yeah, you make some really solid points there because they claim to be kingsmen and they claim to be specific. There's a lot of kings right now, so they specifically claim to be Robert's men. So you would think that they might default align with Robb because Robert's hand was Robb's father. So it would be a logical, especially since Ned was the one that sent Beric Dondarrion on his mission originally. But you gave a lot of really good evidence as to why they might not be so enthused with the two-legged wolves that they've been coming across.
I think the other thing, of course, for them is they probably are not that well informed about the goings-on in King's Landing. So
True.
They know Robert's dead. They assume Joffrey's taken the throne. So now they owe loyalty to Joffrey, and Joffrey is clearly, he's on the side of the Lannisters. So they probably feel like their original mission is no longer sanctified by the king in King's Landing.
Right.
But at the same time, they may not know the claims of illegitimacy of that king.
All good points. So, we certainly know that they don't know a lot about what's going on in King's Landing because the innkeep told Jaime and Brienne that Stannis was at the walls with 80,000 men or something like that.
Right. Which is not terrible information. I mean, that was close to being true for a short time.
True. Yes. Yeah, no, you make some really good points as to why this phenomenon might be happening. And yeah, like you said, they are presenting an IOU, which is not nothing, but, well, we'll get into that later when we get to that part.
So Arya's Mrs. Needle, because when she pulls the sword, she's pulling a broadsword out from across her back, because she can't wear it on her hip because it drags on the floor.
Right.
So she's basically got a sword that's way too big for her. I don't think she could have beaten 3 sort of aged farmers here, 3 actual seasoned soldiers.
Yeah. Does she lost... So if you're thinking, whatever happened to Needle anyway? She lost Needle to a man named Polliver when she and Hot Pie were captured by the Mountain's men trying to rescue Gendry. And Polliver taking Needle earned him a spot on her nightly prayer list. I'll put in quotes there. Yeah. All the people she wants to see dead. Yeah. So that's what happened to Needle. She hasn't...
Is that all Polliver did? Because that seems a little bit light compared to the crimes of some of the people on that list.
Well, he probably did some other things during that march that didn't exactly make her happy.
Sure enough. Yeah. We mentioned that we know Anguy. Anguy won the archery competition at the Hands tournament for Ned's investiture as Hand of the King. He clearly is pretty good if he can fire one through Arya's hair without hurting her. You basically did here.
Yeah, he beat Jalabar Zoe and Balon Swan at 100 paces. And another detail of that victory is he won 10,000 gold dragons. So I don't know where those went.
Well, he's turned to banditry now. He must have spent them.
I guess so, yeah. I actually do know what happened to those. We will find out. I'll say that. We will find out what happened to his earnings. Okay. But he also refused offer from Ned to join Ned's service.
That's right, he did. I'll mention in the TV show, Arya is spying on them through a wall, through a hole in the wall, and Anguy fires an arrow through the hole. Oh. She sees him draw, and she pulls back, and the arrow comes flying through the hole. So he's a good shot in the TV show, too.
Yeah, I guess so. And we meet another singer. And I'll say we've met 2 singers thus far. We met Marillion at the Inn at the Crossroads with Cat and Tyrion. And we've met Simon Silvertongue. Both have caused Tyrion much grief in his life because it was Marillion that pointed out Tyrion's arrival at the inn at the crossroads, which alerted Cat to his presence. And we all just a couple chapters ago, we spent much time discussing the issues that Simon Silvertongue. No, that was just last chapter. Now I'm getting them mixed up. That was just last chapter. We discussed Simon Silvertongue's, as you put it, blood in the milk of Tyrion's life. So the question is, will Tom of Sevens be similarly problematic for Arya?
Or Tyrion somehow. I mean,
somehow, right?
Seems, yeah. He comes across as quite a good character. I mean, when they're threatening to loose arrows at whoever's hiding behind the wall, it is Tom who seems to suggest that it could be good people. But I also think that it was kind of like they were working to a script. It was like,
sure, yeah,
fire arrows, and so the whole thing was a little bit staged.
That's true, yeah. And so Tom announces that he's from Seven Streams. That's why he's Tom of Seven Streams. And actually, Chet of the Night's Watch mentioned in the prologue that he was caught near Seven Streams after killing Bessa, which is how he earned his place at the Night's Watch. And now, Chet was from a town called, it was probably smaller than a town, an area called Hagsmire. And the two towns seem to be near each other. And on the map, it looks like Hagsmire appears to be near the headwaters of the Blue Fork, which is the middle of the three forks of the Trident. So he's a Riverlands man, Tom Seven Streams.
So at first it's kind of hard to... well, I say at first, but I mean, honestly, all the way through this chapter, it's hard to determine the authenticity of the men's kindness and their offer of care to these kids.
True.
They are offering to share food. That kind of seems too good to be true, especially because there's clear indications in this chapter that they are bandits. They were going to steal from Jaime and Robb. But they're... What's there to gain from these three kids who are scrabbling for food in a dead man's allotment? I mean, clearly these kids, apart from the horses, they don't have anything to offer.
True. Very true. Yeah.
And I mean, I think at the end of the day, that is what they're doing. They're stealing their horses slowly and gently.
Yes, they are. That's a good way to put it. Slowly and gently robbing them. Yeah. The whole chapter kind of puts the reader on edge because you can't tell, it's like you said, it's kind of, the offer is kind of too good to be true. Come with us to this inn just down the road where we're going to give you food and a place to sleep and a roof over your head. And it kind of reminds you of the stranger danger thing that all parents teach their kid, it's almost like they're offering candy or to pet a puppy if they get in the car. It's like, oh, as a reader, a first time reader especially, you're like, I don't know what to do here. Either they can be really possibly in a much better situation, but why would these men be helping them here?
Yeah. But you know what? When you're hungry, I mean, they said their food ran out 6 days ago.
Yeah.
You'll get in the car with the guy who's offering candy. At least there's candy.
True. Well, yeah, that's why they came out of the woods. Or when she heard the singing, she thought, I knew we shouldn't have come out of the woods, but we were so hungry. So, but Arya was up to the task. She didn't trust Tom or any of the three right from the get-go. She thought to herself, she knew that all who spoke friendly weren't necessarily friends.
Yeah.
So that's good.
But I mean, you say she's up to the task. She's up to the task of sniffing out the danger, but she's not up to the task of avoiding it. Because she draws her sword, and she's constantly planning how she's going to kill these three guys, right up until the point where Angai fires an arrow at her quicker than she could even look. And says, and sort of like celebrates the fact that he missed. And he's like, if you think I didn't do that on purpose, then you are crazy.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. But clearly she's, unlike Hot Pie, she's learned from her life lessons.
You can just put a period after that. Clearly unlike Pot Pie.
Yes, clearly she's unlike Pot Pie. She's learned a lot of hard life lessons since fleeing the Tower of the Hand, and she has realize that you have to be very careful about strangers that you meet on the road. I mean, unlike Hot Pie, who basically just blurted out all their business and gave his true moniker right off the bat.
I think the kids are very lucky here because
yes,
I think 99% of the broken men, soldiers who've deserted, whatever you find wandering the countryside, would murder them for the carrots.
Oh yeah, probably. Yes. Yeah.
I will say the whole impression I get of this gang is very much sort of Robin Hood. That's what I sort of smell when I think of this gang.
Absolutely.
And it does actually sort of fit that they were willing to kill Cleos, Brienne, and Jaime for those 3 horses and the gold dragons because they were armed people, soldiers in this war in some way.
Right.
These 3 kids, they treat them okay. Yeah, they're going to take their horses, but they're going to give them a good meal in the meantime.
Yeah.
And I think that's sort of like a Robin Hood thing. They're going to steal from those who have and try to look after those who don't as much as they can without, letting them ride off with good-looking horses.
Definitely a lot of parallels you could make between the two. So they agree to go with the men because really when Engai fires that arrow, Arya realizes we don't have a choice. He could put 3 arrows through each of us in a matter of 3 seconds, probably. So,
and he's only got 8 arrows. Runs and grabs one and fires it again.
Yes, he probably could. So they go, and actually they have a fairly nice time riding together. They start out very cautiously riding behind the men. Like Arya says, "You walk up in front of us so we can keep an eye on you." And Tom is like, "Whatever, if it makes you happy, we'll do that." But they end up, Tom and Hot Pie end up singing a duet together, and Engai takes down a duck, and Lem retrieves it. And, then they arrive at the inn, and Arya thinks it's nice and homey, and she doesn't think it's an outlaw. It doesn't look like an outlaw's lair anyway, which, of course, we know that's an outlaw's lair could look like anything, but there's a little bit of irony when Arya sees the sign, which we know is the kneeling man, and she thinks it's some old king kneeling, totally unaware that the king is one of the most famous or possibly infamous, depending on your feelings about him kneeling, of her descendants.
Her ancestors.
Yes, her ancestors, yes. I said descent. Yeah,
it would be her.
Yes, other way around. Yes, her ancestors. Yeah. Yes.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Yeah. One thing I noticed is that there are fires burning in the inn. There's smoke coming out of the chimney, and there wasn't when Jaime and Brienne arrived.
That's right, there wasn't.
And I wonder if maybe it's the presence of Sharna, the wife, that she keeps the inn ticking a little bit, whereas the husband is more of a slob. we still never learn his name, do we?
No, husband Sharna, or innkeep. He's either husband or not the innkeep. That's what they kept calling him in the Brienne chapter, or the Jaime chapter. Yeah, he's less of a homemaker than she is, I guess.
Yeah. So after the party meets Sharna and she berates them for everything she wants to berate them for, the husband comes in and he says there's strange horses outside, which then leads to the conversation which reveals the fact that they were all in league together to rob Jaime and Brienne. Lem says they never came our way, and the husband says, well, I sent them, unaware of the fact that he was so suspicious that they did the opposite of what he told them to. So he then accuses Lem et al. Of being drunk and asleep when they rode past.
Right.
Which is a bit
yes.
possibly true, but also unfair.
And you know what? It dawned on me just last night when I was kind of perusing through the chapter in preparation for this morning, is that the reason the men were on foot is because they were supposed to reclaim those horses and ride them back. Because I thought, why would, I thought it odd that these three men were just walking around the Riverlands.
Actually, that's another thing then. The stables was full of horse manure, right?
Yes.
I think Jaime and Brienne were expecting to find mounted men waiting for them.
Yes. And I think I think the horses that left that manure must have been the ones of Harwin and his group.
Harwin at all, yeah.
Yes.
That does make sense. But it seems like a real long shot because so you're relying on a bunch of things. One is you're going to sell the horses to strangers who come by.
Right.
You're hoping it'll be a trio so you can sell all three horses because you've got three men waiting for them.
Right. Yes.
Right. You're hoping that trio has enough money to make it worth your while because there is a chance that you might miss them, that they might not go the way you said, or that the ambushers get drunk and fall asleep. So It's a high-risk gambit to end up in the same place you would have done if you hadn't sold them the horses.
Yes, except for the 3 gold dragons that you got.
Right, but the chances of them getting 3 gold dragons for those horses were almost nil. I mean, it just so happened they were finding someone who was on a mission for Catelyn Stark who could fund that mission to the tune of gold dragons. Almost Nobody else in the Riverlands has that kind of money.
No. And Jaime kept saying to Brienne she was getting fleeced on this deal. So they could not have expected to get 3 gold dragons per horse here.
Right.
There's something else that I'm not saying that it's pedantry. I'm saying I don't understand the logistics of it. Because the men were not there when Jaime and Brienne and Cleos arrived. The innkeep sends them, the trio, to the men, but they don't show up. Jaime, Brienne, Cleos don't show up. Then, when they get back in this scene here, Lem tells the innkeep that the innkeep could have taken them himself because he says the innkeep had already told them that it was 1 man, 1 woman, and a man in chains. So how did he tell him that if they just arrived back?
I take that whole thing and move it to the pedantry section. That's rock solid. You're absolutely right. I didn't notice it, but yes.
Well,
It's got like a bush telegraph or something.
They have a raven system set up between them. I was thinking about it. Maybe the 3 men were there when the boat docked, and they didn't ride it. Yeah, at first I thought they rode out to wait, but I was like, no, they didn't have horses, so they just ran down the road a bit.
No. They did. They rode out on the 3 horses, which they then let loose. So they've actually lost 6 horses.
Well, we can't keep these. We got to ride the other ones back.
What a terrible plan this is.
So maybe it's pedantry. Maybe there's some logistics that I'm overlooking.
Yeah.
But this goes back to my thought. What Lem says about he tells the innkeep that the innkeep could have taken them himself. And what exactly does he mean by taking them? Do we think he just meant to rob them of their belongings and kick them on their way? Or do you think he was planning on killing the 3 of them?
Yeah, I don't know.
You know?
Because if it's the latter of those, then this group becomes a much more sinister group than just stealing from them.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was getting at. But we do see why the husband / innkeep that's not an innkeep spoke so highly of Beric Dondarrion in that Jaime and Brienne chapter. Because
that's right.
Clearly he's caught up with Dondarrion's force in some manner here.
Yeah. His wife, Shauna's a pistol, but she does, she takes in the kids and feeds them without any hesitation. There's nothing that smells false about her behavior, or she's not poisoning them or anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
She gives them ale, but she sort of warns them about they might be too young. I think she says, you can have ale if you think you're old enough.
Yeah, and she mentions that she doesn't make a habit of giving ale to kids, but the river tastes of war because of all the dead bodies in it, which is a really gross thought.
It's not great.
No.
Not great.
It's really
Although
not.
that should start to thin out now, because there isn't that much fighting upstream now anymore.
Yep.
There was,
that's
the
true.
Lannisters tried to cross at the fords and were repelled. I mean, unless they're still doing it for no reason.
Yeah.
I think they all went to King's Landing, right? So
right. Yeah. There make no
it should
sense
be
to
clear.
keep fighting now to try to get across.
Just a comment on the bread here. I will say that Hot Pie is right about the needing the bread, and a person who was mentioned earlier in the podcast needs to listen carefully to that. One Stacey Ray, because she and I have tried to make the same bread,
right?
And hers came out rock hard. And do you know what she did? She over-kneaded it. That's exactly what Hot Pie is right about.
Yep.
Just try too hard. The reason I like my bread recipe is because it doesn't involve anything. It's dead simple.
You just take it, put it in, and bake it.
Exactly.
Which does maybe this innkeep was too busy kneading bread to light fires around the inn. So you're doing him a disservice.
If you're making bread, you really want to light the fire. It's a necessary part of making bread.
Otherwise, it's going to go wrong very quickly.
So you posed the question here, could they be sincere about the IOUs? Obviously, they're pretty useless at the moment. I think there's a sincerity to them, but I think also there's a layer of insincerity, because the thing is, if you genuinely believe that you're representatives of the king, you could write a genuine IOU and say, present that to the king and you'll get your money back for these horses. Okay?
Right.
But these guys know that they are out on a limb now and that they don't represent anyone.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And so who's the IOU? Who owes? They do, but they can never pay it back. The crown isn't going to pay it back because these guys no longer represent the crown.
Yep. So
I think on those levels, they know that this is just a scam.
Yeah, and it all goes back to the basic thought on paper currency in general. If you believe that the paper is worth what's stated on it, then it holds that value. If you don't believe what the stated value, then it doesn't. Like you said, it seems pretty useless at the moment unless these men establish a significant enough presence in the area to start making good on any claims. Yeah. And this is not the first time that Beric Dondarrion's men have used this practice, because back on the march to Harrenhal with Arya, which was like chapter 6 of A Clash of King or so, she overheard some small folk debating who's worse, the Mountain or Beric Dondarrion. And the man said that at least Beric Dondarrion paid for what he took. And the woman said, he took 2 chickens and gave me paper with a mark on it. I can't eat that.
Right.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I suppose you're right. It also has parallels to Varys' discussion of what is power.
Yes.
It's the illusion of power,
Right.
The illusion is the reality. It's the same with
right.
paper money.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at, basically, with the it's worth it if you think it's worth it thing.
Yeah. So Arya, obviously, if Arya ever gets back to be, a princess of Winterfell, then she doesn't really need the IOU for the horses, but she does need to get back to Winterfell. She gets to get to Riverrun first, and that skiff outside looks like her dream come true. So she counter offers, I'll take the boat for the 3 horses. And it cracks everybody up that she feels like she's got this kind of bargaining power. Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, does anyone here need the boat or want the boat? I mean, I guess, food is going to be scarce, so maybe the ability to fish using the boat might be useful.
It could be useful if we take the innkeep/husband's word, they can't sell very far downstream because there's burned out boats that are blocking the river. It's not a terrible idea to ask. Well, I mean, it is because she has no leverage. It's a terrible idea. But the concept of acquiring the skiff is not a terrible idea if they were trying to go downstream,
Yeah.
But I personally have no clue how hard it is to sail upstream on a river. I feel like it would take some experience and know-how.
I don't either. I'm going to say it will be impossible without an enormous amount of experience, expertise, and probably strength too.
Right.
Because, I mean, unless you've got a strong tailwind, you're fighting against the current. If they give, I would give them the skiff, and then I would go 3 miles downstream and wait for them.
Just like they tried to do with the horses.
And if they sail upstream, God love them, keep the boat.
Yeah, that is probably how it would go. Yeah, now it has been mentioned that the Red Fork is a slow moving current, especially compared to the Tumblestone, but still any current, you can't continue. You'd have to continually nonstop paddle or you're just going to lose any progress.
Right. If you had a sailboat on a lake, you would struggle to get it across to the other side. You'd end up doing a lot of paddling and you'd be exhausted when you got there, right? That's a lake.
Right.
This is a river. I don't care how slow it's moving against you.
Yeah.
It would be miserable.
Yeah, maybe there's a way. I really don't know. I couldn't tell you how hard it would be to sail upstream, but
it's possible. I mean, that's the point of sailing on a river, but I couldn't do it. Not to save my life.
Now, she does say you got to show us how to use it. She adds that in there as well.
Right.
Not that they would know. I don't know.
Exactly.
Maybe
all these experienced sailors.
Yeah.
Well, actually, one thing, just while we're talking about the people, just going back to Angai, how did you envision Angai?
Physically?
Yeah.
Well,
I had him as sort of like dark-haired, olive-skinned, sort of like maybe Spanish looking.
Because he's from the Dornish Marches.
Right. But he's got red hair.
True.
It blew my mind. I was like, surely not. That sounds like what a Stark might have. Well, I guess, or actually a Tully.
Yes, the Tullys. Definitely the Tullys. Yeah, I'd missed that detail that he had red hair. So I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah. Anyway, so when Lem grabs Arya, sort of like her traumas come back, and her traumas come back all the time because her trauma is about being helpless. She hates that feeling of helplessness, but it happens to her all the time. Like when Angai shows how quickly he could kill her with the bow and arrows, again she's helpless.
Yes.
She's like,
yes.
I just can't catch a break here. She keeps on thinking about her training, and then her training just gets trumped by the things that other people can do, which are just
which
they're
is
stronger, they're bigger, they're faster.
Right. And that's the life of most 10-year-olds.
Right.
You
right.
know.
Except most 10-year-olds aren't constantly fighting for their life and
True.
trying to
That
cross
is
a continent
not.
on foot. Yeah.
that is not the at least in her station in life, it is not usual for one of her age. Yeah.
But I will say, of all the groups she's encountered, I mean, these guys feel like they are at least not evil.
Oh yes, right. Yeah, they're neither seem like Brienne type noble men,
Right.
nor do they seem like completely evil and full of malice. So, yeah, she mentions the village, she's thinking, oh no, this is happening again, when Lem won't let her draw her sword when the soldiers are coming in. And she mentions feeling like the village with the tickler in the mountain and being turned back into a mouse. And just as a reminder, it was during the march to Harrenhal, she felt she was no longer a dire wolf. Instead, she felt like she was a sheep, and they took away any defense she had. And then at Harrenhal, she felt like a mouse, like she could skitter anywhere unnoticed and nobody paid her any attention, and she could hear conversations, but she also had no power, no ability to defend herself.
Whereas, of course, since she's escaped Harrenhal, she started to dream wolf dreams again. So she's kind of like re-establishing herself as that. And so this moment where she is completely paralyzed by Lem because he's a huge guy. Of course, he could hold a 10-year-old still.
Right.
Apart from he's got to pay attention to her other hand, of course.
Yes,
especially if it's got a tankard of ale in it.
He didn't see that left hand coming, I guess. But so the band shows up, the band of men, and it includes a wide range of people, including a Tyrashi and I believe a Bravasi, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
And one of the men dons a lion-crested helm. And I wondered, could that be a Westerman joining the cause with Harwin and Beric Dondarrion? Or possibly more likely, is it just a borrowed, in quotation marks, helm that from a dead man that he came across?
I definitely think it's possible because, I mean, I we've heard enough rumours of Beric Dondarrion's crew to know that the rumours are circulating the Riverlands. And if you perhaps wanted to desert from your actual soldiering, this might be very tempting to join the band who are, doing whatever they want. So
right.
I could certainly see it being a Lannister, but not a Lannister loyalist anymore, that's for sure.
Right, yes.
So Harwin, just a reminder, he's the son of Hullen, who was Master of Horse at Winterfell. So he knew the Starks very well.
Yeah, and just a reminder of Hullen, we mentioned this earlier, he was in King's Landing with Ned, and he died when the Lannisters sacked the Tower of the Hand. Arya came across him on her way to the stables. She thought he was dead, but he grabs her leg and tells her to warn her father. I think he calls her Arya Underfoot.
Right.
It says to warn her father before he dies. So that was Harwin's father.
Yeah. And Harwin we met right at the start of the whole thing because he was part of the beheading party that found the dial.
Right.
He spoke some lines during that chapter. So
yeah. And I'll just say the scene with Harwin is, maybe it's why I keep getting goosebumps when I get to the end of the chapter. It's just a rare, sweet moment in a story with so much hurt and death and betrayal. It's almost jarring to read a nice, sweet moment like that. It's like, wait, something's got to go wrong here.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with your wrong point. But I will say my take on reading that was like, Arya, be quiet. Only one of those people is Harwin. Everybody else is a guy you don't know or can't trust.
You're right. It's even with this sweet moment, there's a tension that comes with it. Yes, if you overlook just the pure reunion for her, a moment of relief with someone that she knows and trusts. Yes, there is that underlying tension of, oh no, now they know.
You can certainly imagine that Harwin would be loyal to Arya and might actually want to help her get back to Riverrun. And if this group is sufficiently nebulous, maybe he can do that as a side mission before rejoining them. So that could happen. But this group is clearly interested in making profit, not necessarily to line their pockets, but maybe for the good of the people of the Riverlands.
Like Robin Hood.
Like Robin Hood, exactly.
Right.
And so perhaps they might prefer to see her ransomed to Riverrun. The good thing is, though, I don't expect her to see her tortured and maimed.
Right.
Like I would if she fell into the Lannisters or perhaps Roose Bolton's hands.
Yes, absolutely. Now, and you had mentioned that only one of these men is Harwin, and the rest we don't know about. But even Harwin, having been in Beric Dondarrion's force since they left King's Landing, if the stories are true, they've seen some pretty bad stuff, not the least of which was possibly the first battle they faced, the battle at Mummer's Ford, which we learned about when Catelyn showed up at Moat Cailin and Robb was telling her this story, where Beric and his men were ambushed crossing the Red Fork, and they were attacked from both sides of the river by the Mountain's men. They faced heavy casualties. That was the first time we had heard that Beric Dondarrion had died. So, he might not be the same person he was when she knew him as the boy who led her pony around the yard.
Yeah, but you've got to feel like on a personal level, he's going to care about her.
Yeah,
You know?
sure.
But
You would hope so. You would certainly hope so.
But he may no longer be a Stark bannerman. So
yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like, if he's a loyal Northman, loyal to Robb, now the Lord or King, regardless of the North, why hasn't he himself reported to Riverrun to rejoin Robb's forces? So, maybe he feels he's given enough to the war effort. Like I said, he's been through a lot. But he does take a knee when he recognizes Arya, so...
Right, that's his instinct, is certainly to sort of pay her homage, yeah. Okay, do you have any background for us, Mackelly?
I do. There was not a whole lot to go off of for background here in this chapter, which we run into from time to time. But the mention of Old Pate, that was the man whose burned out cottage they were hiding in and whose garden they were taking the vegetables from. Anyway, the mention of Old Pate reminded me of a story that took place here on the Red Fork. And since this chapter takes place right along the banks of the river, I thought I'd mention it. The battle at the Red Fork was fought in 130 AC, which was a busy year for fighting. I counted 17 fights from riots to battles that took place in that year. Of course, it makes sense because the Dance of the Dragons took place from 129 AC to 131 AC, and that is the story being told by House of the Dragon, the HBO show. I actually made reference to this battle once in an Arya chapter when they were at the God's Eye. I'll explain why I did so in a minute. But anyway, this particular battle started when Lord Jason Lannister led his Westermen east to support Aegon the Second Targaryen in his fight for the Iron Throne against his half-sister Rhaenyra. Along their way, they found rivermen who supported Rhaenyra, blocking a crossing of the Red Fork. Despite being outnumbered by the Westermen, the rivermen threw back 3 attempts from the Westermen to cross. Lord Jason was killed in the 3rd attempt by a squire named Pate of Longleaf, which is where the Pate thing ties in. With Jason lost, Sir Adrian Tarbeck took up command of the Westermen. Tarbeck was clearly a crafty one, as he and 100 knights took off their armor and swam across the river upstream of the fighting, and then surprised the rivermen from behind, causing the rivermen's resistance to collapse and allowing the Westermen to cross. For killing Jason Lannister, Lord Peter Piper knighted Pate of Longleaf, who went on to be known as Longleaf the Lion Slayer.
Nice.
Now, here's where I previously referenced this battle. I mentioned these men lost Jason Lannister on the way to the battle by the lakeshore, which took place on the western bank of the God's Eye. It was an absolute slaughter. It was the bloodiest battle of the Dance of the Dragons. And these Westermen were driven into the lake and annihilated, giving the battle the nickname the Fish Feed. All that I mentioned in that Arya chapter. So this is the prelude to that battle.
Right. So comparison with the television show, Arya, Gendry, and Hot Pie meet a larger group of this brotherhood, which includes Thoros of Myr. Thoros of Myr is the one who does most of the talking to her.
Okay.
The scene is similar in the sort of overall niceness of the guys, with that overlay of mistrust and fear from the kids. Angway, as I mentioned, shows off his archery skills. In the inn, Arya is revealed to be Arya Stark, not by a friend, but by a man who I won't mention his name because I think it's a future spoiler for the book. That the brothers, the group had taken captive. This person was taken captive and knew Arya and announced it to everyone.
Okay. All right.
So
yeah,
she there was nobody dropping to their knees in front of her.
No Harwin. Poor Harwin got written out.
Pedantry Corner. Right at the start of the chapter, when she hears the singing, she thinks it could be Bolton's men, it could be the mummers, and she's like, "But what?" And it literally says, "Only why would the mummers be singing?" But I mean, If you're known as the bloody mummers, wouldn't you sort of adopt some of the things that mummers do? And one of the things that mummers do is sing. To me, it seems like a perfectly reasonable assumption that this could be the bloody mummers.
Yeah, I had that same thought. Of course, they call themselves the Brave Companions.
Right, they don't use that name. I
Right.
know, but they know that people call them the bloody mummers.
Right.
I would just accept it. And,
Right. And of course, my bit about how did they communicate to one another. If you want to consider that pedantry, back up, listen to it now.
Yeah. I certainly do. Well played. News and notes. So we're going to take a week off after this episode.
Yes, you'll be enjoying some much deserved rest and relaxation.
Hopefully.
And we've got a boatload of notes here since we've got 2 weeks to cover, I guess. But so Miguel Sapochnik is leaving House of the Dragon, at least in his current capacity as co-showrunner and director. He'll still maintain his role as an executive producer, though. He's also entered into a deal with HBO to develop new projects. As for his work on House of the Dragon, he directed the premiere episode, which ended its first week with 25 million viewers.
Wow.
As well as episodes 6 and 7 of this first season here. He'll be replaced by Alan Taylor, who is no stranger to the Game of Thrones world. Taylor signs on as executive producer and will direct episodes in season 2. And we're in good hands there, as Taylor directed 2 of the most impactful episodes in season 1 of A Game of Thrones, those being the Ned beheading episode and the Dany Dragonsbirth episode, among others.
Yeah. There was a Baratheon or Lannister wedding last week.
Depending on your perspective.
So Jack Gleeson, who's very famous for his role as Joffrey Baratheon in Game of Thrones, married his girlfriend Roisin O'Mahony. Roisin O'Mahony. She's got a lovely name.
I'm glad you have much closer to an Irish accent than I do, so glad you took this one.
I'm pretty sure the citizens of a certain country would disagree.
Closer than me, anyway.
In a small ceremony in County Kerry in Ireland, the news was leaked through a tweet by their priest. What a very modern way to have your nuptials announced.
I know, right? And I just saw this morning. I actually added this minutes before we started recording. If you don't have HBO but are interested in checking out what House of the Dragon is all about, well, not all about, but you could at least get a little taste. The complete first episode is streaming on YouTube for free. Just go to YouTube and watch it. So driving up the 25 million viewer number, I guess.
And you unearthed a new review, Frankus Tankus on Apple Podcasts.
Great
Love
name.
the podcast. Yes, it is a good name. Love the podcast. I recently found your podcast on Spotify. I was instantly hooked. I read the books years ago and was considering a reread in anticipation of Winds of Winter. Your pod is the best refresh I could ask for. You guys provide the in-depth analysis I wish I had access to in my first read. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Frankus Tankus.
Thank you very much. And you know, that warms my heart, especially because what he said, basically his description, is the pitch I made to you when I first proposed this idea. Is exactly. I thought people would be preparing to want to read Winds of Winter when it was released, and I wanted to provide people like a chapter-by-chapter companion of the story.
Did you think we would reach episode 157 without a release date for Winds of Winter yet?
I did not. I thought we wouldn't have reached 57 before it was announced.
All right, let's conclude. So there's much moral ambiguity going on all around. It's unclear if killing people for gain is part of the plan of this group or just robbing them like they do with the kids' horses.
Yeah, and Tom kind of tries to compare what he's doing with their horses to what Arya and company were doing with the vegetables from old Pate's abandoned house. I disagree. I'm totally fine with them taking the vegetables from the abandoned house. It feels like a victimless crime. They were going to rot otherwise.
Yeah. There's very little law and order in the region, so they're just surviving. And I guess both sides of this are doing what they need to do to survive.
Yeah, and we mentioned earlier that Sharna seems to be on the up and up here. And one line that she has toward the end of the chapter kind of drives it home. She says when they start to freak out, like Hot Pie spills his ale and Arya reaches for her sword when Gendry comes in and says there's soldiers coming, and she says, just relax, nothing to spill ale over. Whatever harm has been done to you, it's over now. We'll keep you as safe as we can.
Yeah, I think it's one of these typical sort of, you start off as a crook and then you move into legitimate business, you know.
Sure, yeah.
She's actually setting up this inn. It'll become a real tourist attraction in years to come.
Right. Yeah, that could be. And also, I think maybe she feels an instinct to protect these kids, you know. I mean, as an adult, you might feel that way.
Yeah. Is the boat a route back to Riverrun for Arya? I'm guessing no, even if the group would let her have it.
I'm with you on
would
that.
they aid her? Could they aid her? But it is very hard to imagine Harwin ransoming her to the Lannisters. He might ransom her to the Starks.
Right, sure. I guess that's possible, sure. You would
can
hope...
have her back, but I'm keeping the 3 horses.
Right, yeah. You know, there's a large group, and he's not necessarily in charge, so he might not have... He might have every intention of taking care of Arya and bringing her safely back to Riverrun. He might even know that Cat is in Riverrun. You know, she doesn't know that. She just thinks her brother's in Riverrun.
Right.
But he might not have the final say. But hopefully he could at least protect her while she is with this group.
Yeah, absolutely. We did hope that Arya's little group might bump into Jaime and Brienne, but that seems like they missed each other, so that's unfortunate, because that could have been a sliding doors moment.
Yes, definitely could have. Maybe they'll double back. Maybe Jaime and Brienne will feel the need to go back to the inn. But yes, it does seem very unlikely that that's going to happen now.
So, there's 3 ways you can help us. You could leave us a review. We'd always appreciate those. You can buy some merchandise at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com, or you can buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostsharrenhal, or even become a sustainer there. Join the others who've already done so, to whom we are very grateful.
Absolutely. And as you know, you can reach us at ghost.harrenhal@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at @GhostHarrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. And if you really want to reach us, the best way to do it is join the Discord community and chat with us there.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.